I'm 104 years old, and I can still tell you what I ate for breakfast this morning: toast with butter, 2 eggs, black coffee. My daughter thinks it's a miracle, but here's what I know that she doesn't. Forgetting isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you let happen. My name is Dorothy Chen, and I've spent the last 30 years watching my friends disappear inside their own minds. Good people, smart people, people who did everything right according to the doctors. And I've asked myself every single day why I'm still here, still sharp, still remembering things from 1923 like they happened last week. I think I finally understand it now, and it's not what anyone wants to hear. When I was 74 years old, my husband died, James. We'd been married 51 years. He went to sleep one night and didn't wake up, and the doctor said it was his heart, very peaceful, nothing anyone could have done. Everyone told me how lucky that was, how it was a blessing he didn't suffer, and I smiled and nodded because that's what you do. But inside I was furious. Furious at him for leaving, furious at God for taking him, furious at the word blessing being used to describe the worst thing that ever happened to me. For about 6 months, I did what you're supposed to do when you're a widow. I accepted casseroles from neighbors. I went to church. I sat in my house and looked at his empty chair and waited to feel better. My daughter kept saying I needed time to grieve, time to heal, time to adjust. And one morning I woke up and realized that time wasn't doing anything except making me older and smaller and further away from the person I used to be. So I did something everyone thought was crazy. I got a job. At 74 years old, I walked into the public library downtown and asked if they needed help. And the young woman at the desk looked at me like I'd asked to climb Mount Everest. She said very gently that most of their volunteers were retired teachers or college students. I told her I didn't want to volunteer. I wanted a job, a real job with a paycheck. She went and got her supervisor, and her supervisor was kind enough to not laugh in my face, and 2 weeks later I was working 20 hours a week shelving books and helping people use the computers. That library saved my life, not because of the job itself, though I loved the work. It saved me because it gave me a reason to learn something new every single day. The world had changed so much while I was busy being a wife and a mother and a grandmother. Computers, internet, email, things I'd avoided because James always handled anything technical, and I'd convinced myself I was too old to understand it anyway. But now I had to understand it. It was my job. So I learned. Slowly. With a lot of mistakes and a lot of patience from the younger staff members who showed me the same thing 15 times until it stuck. And something happened to my brain during those years. It woke up. I started noticing things I'd stopped paying attention to. The names of the children who came in for story hour. The faces of the regulars who came in every Tuesday for the new mystery releases. The way the light came through the windows differently in winter than in summer. My daughter said I seemed like myself again, and I realized I'd forgotten there was a self to be. I worked at that library until I was 89, 15 years. The day I finally retired for real, the staff threw me a party and gave me a plaque that said I'd helped over 10,000 people learn to use a computer. I cried because I knew those 10,000 people had actually helped me. Every question they asked, every problem we solved together, every time I had to figure out something new to teach them, my brain was building new pathways. Staying flexible, staying curious, staying alive. After I left the library, I was afraid I'd start fading. That was the word I used in my head, fading, like an old photograph left in the sun. But I'd learned something during those 15 years, And it wasn't about computers. It was about the difference between existing and participating. So I kept participating. I took a watercolor class at the senior center even though I'd never painted anything in my life. I joined a book club that read authors I'd never heard of. I started taking walks around my neighborhood and actually talking to people instead of just nodding hello. Small things, nothing dramatic, just a decision every single day to stay connected to the world instead of slowly disconnecting from it. And I watched my friends make different choices. Good people who'd worked hard their whole lives and decided retirement meant rest, meant routine, meant doing the same comfortable things day after day because they'd earned it. And I saw what happened to them, how the light in their eyes started dimming, how they'd tell the same stories over and over because they weren't making new memories to replace the old ones, how they'd forget names, then faces, then eventually how to find their way home. The doctors have all kinds of explanations for why some people get Alzheimer's and some don't. Genetics, diet, exercise, stress, and I'm sure all of that matters. But I think there's something else they don't talk about enough. I think your brain is like any other part of your body. If you stop using it the way it was meant to be used, it stops working. And your brain wasn't meant to do the same thing over and over until you die. It was meant to learn, to adapt, to be surprised, to struggle with new information and figure out how to make sense of it. Every time you learn something new, every time you have a conversation with someone who thinks differently than you do, every time you get lost and have to find your way home using a route you've never taken before, you're fighting for your mind. You're telling your brain that it still has work to do, that you're not finished yet, that there are still things in this world worth paying attention to. I'm not saying I've done everything right. I've had my share of health problems. My knees are terrible. My hearing isn't what it was. I take more pills in the morning than I used to take in a year. But my mind is still mine. I can still read a book and remember what happened in the previous chapter. I can still have a conversation without losing my train of thought halfway through. I can still look at my daughter's face and know exactly who she is and how much I love her. And I know how lucky that is. I know there are people who did everything I did and still got sick. I know there are no guarantees, but I also know that I fought for this. Every single day for the last 30 years, I made the choice to stay engaged with life, even when it would have been easier to retreat. Even when I was tired or scared or didn't feel like learning one more new thing. I kept choosing challenge over comfort, curiosity over routine, connection over isolation. Last month, my daughter asked me what my secret is. She's 68 now, starting to worry about her own memory, and she wanted to know what she should be doing. I told her there is no secret. There's just a decision you make every morning when you wake up. Are you going to participate in the world today, or are you going to let the world move on without you? Are you going to learn something new, even if it's hard, even if you fail at it? Are you going to have a real conversation with someone, not just small talk, but actually listening to what they think and feel? Are you going to challenge yourself in some small way? Or are you going to do exactly what you did yesterday? Because here's what I've learned at 104 years old. Your brain doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't know if you're 30 or 70 or 90. All it knows is whether you're using it or not, whether you're giving it problems to solve and new information to process and reasons to stay sharp. The moment you stop doing that, the moment you decide you're too old to learn or change or try something difficult, that's when the fading starts. Not because you're old, because you've given up. I don't know how much longer I have. Could be a year, could be 10 years. But however long it is, I'm going to spend it the same way I've spent the last 30. Learning, connecting, paying attention, fighting for every single day of clarity and presence and memory. Not because I'm afraid of dying, because I'm not finished living. And if you take nothing else from my story, take this. Whatever age you are right now, your brain is still capable of change, still capable of growth, still capable of building new pathways and making new connections. But you have to give it the chance. You have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to stay curious about the world, even when the world makes it easy to stop caring. You have to keep participating in life, even when life gets hard. That's how you avoid losing yourself. Not with a pill or a diet or a miracle cure. With the decision you make every single day to stay awake to the world, to stay interested, to stay challenged, to stay human. I'm Dorothy Chen. I'm 104 years old, and I still remember everything that matters.